Toto, where are we? We're not in Indiana anymore. But more importantly, where is Esther? Because we're about to launch into our new study on the book of Esther. And we're going to learn in this introduction how context is key. That God puts us in specific places at specific times, just like he did Esther, for such a time as this. So keep watching to learn important background information on Esther's story. Hi everybody, before we get started, if you wouldn't mind clicking subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. And at the end, please like and share this video. Now here comes today's lesson. Hi everyone, we're back. And today's lesson is on the introduction to the book of Esther. I'm so excited for the study. I love the book of Esther. And one of my favorite fun facts is that it is one of only two books, the other being the Song of Solomon, that does not directly mention the name of God. But God's hand and fingerprints are all over this story, and we'll see it as the story unfolds. And it reminds me of culture where so many things happen in life. People don't like to give God the credit. But we're going to unpack the story, and you are going to see God's hand all over this book. And so something really important to know, like any book or story in the Bible, is we need to understand the context. We need to understand who the characters were and what was happening at the time. And Esther is such an interesting story because it's hard to understand how a young Jewish girl would become queen of Persia. And Persia, by the way, back then was a huge, massive area that the Persians had eventually amassed and conquered. And it included Iran, Iraq, Turkey, present-day Afghanistan, parts of Saudi Arabia and Egypt. So I have a map up that you can see kind of this massive area of the Persian Empire during the book of the time of Esther. And so the Persian, so how did Esther even as a Jew get to Persia? And so what happened is after the United Kingdom, so here comes a quick history lesson. The United Kingdom under Saul, under David, and under Solomon kind of fell apart after Solomon died, and things separated. So we had northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Well, Israel was conquered by the Assyrians in 722 BC, and then Judah was conquered by the Babylonians in 586 is when the temple was destroyed BC. And so we're talking about the people, the exiles, the Babylonians took back to Babylon. Some were dispersed. They called it the Jewish diaspora, the dispersion of the Jews to areas when they escaped the Babylonian exile. And so this time frame, after the Jews went to Babylon, the Persians conquered Babylon. And so that's where we are in history in the story of Esther. And under King Cyrus of Persia, he actually allowed the Jews to go back to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And we see this in 2 Chronicles 36:23. And another fun fact that I like to share is the Hebrew Bible, known as the Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures, and our Protestant Old Testament are the same books of the Bible, just in a different order. And the reason they're different is the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh, actually ends with 2 Chronicles, this verse that talks about going back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. And so it gives the Jewish people hope of rebuilding and a focus on going back to the promised land. But the Protestant Old Testament ends on Malachi, which points to the hope of Jesus. And so same books, a little different focus and order of the books. So just a little fun fact I was throwing in there. And so Esther is part of this Jewish exile, the Jews who were exiled. But when they go back under King Cyrus to rebuild the temple, some of the Jewish people remained in Persia. And Esther and her cousin Mordecai were two of those people. And so it's very interesting to understand and to know how Esther, a young Jewish girl, became queen of Persia. And that's how it happened. That's how she ended up there. But She became queen because of God's hand, and we're going to see it as the story unfolds in the coming weeks. And we're going to meet some interesting characters. Right off the bat, we're going to meet King Ahasuerus, also known as King Xerxes, and his current queen, Vashti, and she doesn't last for long, obviously. There has to be an opening of a door for Esther to come in. And we're going to read about that next week in our very first lesson. Then, of course, in every good story, there is a bad guy. And the bad guy in the story is named Haman. And we're going to meet Haman soon as well. And Mordecai actually raised Esther because both of her parents died. He is a cousin of hers, and he raised her. So he is a very important character. In fact, this book could be called the Book of Mordecai because he is so instrumental throughout this book. And so it's such a great story. And one other little tidbit, so I'm giving you the start of the story, but it ends with the festival. And so there's so many feasts and festivals throughout this book. And this festival still remains today, and it's called Purim. And it's actually going to be held on March 2nd, 2026 of this year. And it celebrates the story of Esther and how she saves the Jewish people. And so just another little fun fact as we get started. So I hope you tune in the weeks to come. We have 9 lessons on this book of Esther. And each week we're going to learn a little bit more, and we're going to see God's hand working behind the scenes. So tune in next week. It is lesson 1 called Opening the Door. So I hope you tune in. Thank you. Bye-bye.